I've learned, James 1:19 says, be quick to listen and slow to speak. And I use that as a rule, particularly when I meet new people. But I just use that as a rule all the time. If you sit and be quiet, people will tell you their life story in 15 or 20 minutes.
I am super excited to be interviewing Dr. Thomas, Doctorate in Divinity, a retired Navy chaplain, and just really a mental health advocate. And we're going to talk a little bit about his book. We're going to talk about grief. And I'm super excited because he's also my personal friend. We are both retired from the Navy and met there. So thank you so much for being here. So I gave a little bit of history of you, but just give us more of your kind of professional introduction of, your accolades as well as your experience.
You want professional, personal?
Start with professional, and then I like to dig in and
you dig after
show my audience.
Oh, you dig after
professionals have
a journey. My professional direction as a I would call myself a not only a minister but pastoral care really has been my emphasis. I always wanted to be the best pastor, preacher, teacher, healer, evangelist that was ever out there. Those were my goals. And so to do that takes both experience and some educational challenges, and then being in the fire and learning. You have to combine both the experience and the educational to have exciting, revelatory experiences. Right. And so that's really where I placed myself. I did not want to do this profession. My dad was a minister. I did not want to be a minister whatsoever. I saw the challenges of...
Never say never, right?
Yeah. Well, I saw the challenges of dealing with people. People can be challenging, but you need to know yourself to be able to deal with people appropriately and authentically.
Yes.
And so I saw myself as an introvert for several reasons. I had a speech impediment for 14 years. I know you never know that now. I'm kind of backed up. That's why I tend to probably talk so much. But I've learned, James 1:19 says, be quick to listen and slow to speak. And I use that as a rule, particularly when I meet new people. But I just use that as a rule all the time. If you sit and be quiet, people will tell you their life story in 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah.
So I found that more often than not, just observe and just sit, and people can't wait to tell you what's going on in their life, which is so exciting to me. Yeah. Just to see the family of origin, to see the little changes, all the twisting turns in their life, and they want to tell you about the crucibles they went through. They want to tell you about their resilience. And so what I do is I think I'm in the perfect field to listen to people's travels as they communicate in whatever way they communicate, through words, through body language, through their hands, through their food that they eat, through their walk. And so one of my pet peeves to listen is listen, let feel. You can feel whatever you want. I'm just going to listen.
Yeah, and we don't live in a culture where we talk much about feelings. And being a military chaplain,
yes,
it is a spiritual position, but it's really a counseling position in the military. Talk to us about what that's like to counsel people in the military.
Well, I really got, when I was mobilized to San Diego at the mobilization site in 2008, I really feel like my military career was not on blast, but I was really engaged, and I wanted to be as engaged as possible. So so the mobilization site was perfect because we had 300 people coming in every week. They'd come in on Sunday, they'd leave on Saturday, and we were with them throughout the whole time, listening to, are you ready? Are you ready? Where are you stressed? Are you stressed because you left a family who they don't know where you're going and they have some concerns? Do you have financial issues? Do you have health issues that maybe you're not telling us about? We'll find out. You can't hide it. When we take your blood pressure, we'll know how stressed you are. So that was one of my jobs. When people had high blood pressure, they'd take them to bring them to me, and I would take them through a 20-minute meditation, and most of their everybody passed who after they came to me, and their blood pressure dropped 30 points.
Mm-hmm.
And so I would just listen to what is going on and are you ready? And of course, during the week, I would teach them about I teach them about combat operational stress. And that was a real joy. So listening, there has to be a degree of confidence because, it's confidential counseling. So, I'm really not supposed to share, although the command would often want me to share. No, this is confidential. Just like you going to a doctor, a lawyer, this is confidential. And so I felt blessed that they were able to give me a room and a door where you could close the door and I could listen and, really deal with some deep heart issues, personal issues, maybe why did they even join the military?
Mm-hmm.
And what is this move going to do? What do they see this? Why is this mobilization important? And what do you expect when you come back? And being able to be the Med-Hold chaplain allowed me to listen to them before they went and also listen to them when they came back, which was really amazing to be in that, to be double-headed that way.
Well, let's talk a little bit about grief.
Yes.
We know that I'm obviously an expert in grief, but grief is a part of everyone's life.
Yes.
And then we kind of have this spectrum of grief that, is almost expected that,
Yes.
we will have losses in this world and we will have pain in this world, all the way to intense or traumatic grief.
Yes.
From a counseling and spiritual standpoint, talk to us a little bit about grief.
Well, I experienced grief mostly in the hospital because every time I go to ICU, there is a great potential that the patient that I'm getting ready to see will possibly expire within the next 2 days.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and that became even more apparent during COVID. Half the hospital was filled with COVID patients, and every day somebody died. Mm-hmm. And so, I've had my experience with grief or with death happened the second sermon I preached in July of 1980. Mother Wilkins hugged me, and when she stepped back, she expired right there on the spot.
I could tell your first time preaching, or
second time. Was my first sermon was June 1980. My second one was July 1980. My second sermon, a woman hugged me, said words of affirmation, stepped back, and gave up the ghost. And I knew it because of the fluids, and I had to reflect why did that happen at such an early stage in my life, and I figured out that I think God or the Divine Spirit was trying to teach me that life is short. Life is like vapor. It's like grass that grows up in the morning. The evening is soon cut off. So I got a really good taste of what that's like. And so it allowed me to try to be present every day, realizing that the people that I meet, this might be my first and last time meeting with them. And so it makes time more precious.
I love hearing the end result of that. And a lot of people that follow me are really struggling with how to get to that end result, that why. You've kind of walked with me along my journey and my spiritual conflict of like, very angry with God.
Yes.
And that this journey, and I talk about this all the time. It's okay to be angry with God. He can handle it.
Right.
But oftentimes we see people that just kind of cut themselves off spiritually.
Yes.
They just,
Yes.
I'm mad at God, or I don't believe that there is a God because he did not protect the things that I thought he would protect. And that journey that you talked about, and for you, it was, kind of career and what you were going to be teaching others. But how would you help someone that is kind of angry at God, questioning God? Is this even real? And, feeling free to kind of figure out their spiritual journey.
Well, in my counseling, I've realized there's 4 basic feelings, right? Mad, sad, glad, and afraid. So, so there's some core value, emotions that we go through. And so we need to process that. We process that in various ways. Hopefully, I encourage people to get a journal and begin to write down what, let me know what are those mad feelings? What are those sad feelings? Because they're not just a singular element or component. So many of them, there's cross-section or cross-pollination. And so we need to be able to understand that they're not that simplistic, but we need to understand how do we feel today so that tomorrow when we think about those issues, something new is going to come up because we've already put down and laid down a foundation of how we feel. And then I just let them feel what you're going to feel. And based on your background, how you see life, your perspective, and and then if you want some assistance, we'll guide you along this journey and we'll use some other tools to try to highlight what is that feeling of frustration. Is it something you learn in childhood? Something you learn from your family of origin, some you learn from a significant friend, where did you get this? Where did you get a philosophy or theology about why you feel or think the way you feel? So we really have to get at the essence, the core, the origin, the genesis of why do you feel the way you feel? So that takes listening, and it takes a desire to almost be like an archaeologist.
Oh, I love you. Yes, I love what you're saying.
Yeah.
Archaeologists, listen. This is something that I think we don't teach to practice enough in the organized religions, right? We are taught to listen to someone's teaching,
right?
But not necessarily listening to God himself. And that was really my struggle. One of the questions that people ask me after seeing the grief documentary is, where are you spiritually now? And I say, Carl Jung, one of the famous psychologists, said, when asked that same question, he said, I used to believe in God. Now I know God. Right. And we so often equate our relationship with God to what we were taught about God, whether good, bad. And when you have trauma, many of the things that I taught that I do believe are true did not resonate with me at the time, right? It made me angry. It made me feel unprotected and unloved by God.
Right.
And so even recently I had a patient come to me, and she had just lost her husband. And her husband was a deacon in the church, and she is non-attending the church. She's in a significant financial hardship, and won't go back to the church because she felt that they showed no care for her after his passing. And these are very unfortunate things, but it doesn't mean that is the whole church or in everyone in that particular church, right? People fall through the cracks. Things happen. We are all human. And so I always tell people, we have to start talking about that we are spiritual beings, that we are on a journey, and part of our mental health journey is our spiritual journey. And you were fortunate enough to be able to be in a position where you could counsel and, talk about those spiritual things. But in my profession, it's kind of, we're told to separate it, right? Like their spiritual belief system is, on like not part of their mental health. And so talk to us a little bit about, and not with a, specific proselytization, but how, your spiritual health is part of this journey.
Well, I was fortunate to live in Africa.
Mm.
The first person I lived with for about 3 months was a Roman Catholic priest.
Mm.
I mean, I come out of a Protestant perspective, but for some reason, I always had a curiosity about, there's got to be something more than just Christianity.
Mm.
And so I'm curious enough to listen to other people and try to find out why do you believe what you believe? So being with that, I ate dinner with this, he was another fellow teacher. I ate dinner with this priest from Goa every day. And he'd have his chutney on the table. And there's something that happens when you eat with someone. The fellowship of eating brings out just a plethora of really pleasant, peaceful conversation.
Yeah.
And then after that, I lived with a Muslim for a year and a half. I mean, I've read the Quran, and so what a joy to one of the such a gentle individual. In fact, this fellow saved my life. I had malaria, and luckily I had a roommate. And my malaria, the temperature got up so high, 105 and more. I threw coins at the door, and he finally woke up after about 3 or 4 tosses. And if it wasn't for him to drag me up to the nurse to get more medicine, I probably wouldn't be here. My brains would have been so scrambled, I wouldn't have anything to use. And then I used to go to, I'll be very vulnerable here. I used to go to the Hare Krishna temple. Number one, because I was trying to eat more vegetarian from that perspective. And so I read the Bhagavad Gita. Mm-hmm. And so just being with all of these different faith groups, and it allowed me to just have a eclectic perspective. And that's
there's several things that we've lost in the developed world. Is one, ceremony. We don't have ceremony, and ceremony is a way to move and process grief. We also have separated health and mental health, right? And in a lot of Eastern traditions, right, health and your spiritual walk are directly connected. And so we might think of ourselves as this developed country with more wisdom, but we've really lost something in those in that quote unquote intelligence.
Yes. So I was able to, and then just being in Africa and just with all these 52 different tribes, they all had their own idea of faith and the origin of faith, and so I had to be open because I didn't want to relate to people with judgment. And so you have to really maintain a presence and be very heartful and love people unconditionally to be able to listen to their story and listen to why faith is important to them. And so being in institutional ministry, first as a prison chaplain for 20 years and then as a military chaplain, I learned the importance of listening and not proselytizing. And of course, being in the hospital, I continued with that ability to just listen and not proselytize. And so all this experience of sitting with all these different patients, all these different soldiers coming from all different backgrounds and genders really helped me to have a very open and receptive heart and mind. And so and so that I'm always in a place of curiosity and inquiry. Right. When you're in a place of inquiry, you're wanting to what and And what else? What else? And if you say those words, people, they can't wait to dig into their heart and tell you about some of that spiritual trauma and spiritual injury
Yeah.
that's still sitting there that has not been resolved.
Yeah.
And that's part of my goal and my desire is that you can talk about this injury, because as you talk about the injury, you heal from sharing all the pain and the trauma that you've gone through. It might be intergenerational, passed down from your parents or grandparents. And so that's the joy of pastoral care, being able to sit and listen, and hopefully you'll hear a word that you can dig a little bit more, like an archaeologist or anthropologist. I was blessed in Africa. I was blessed in Africa to meet Richard Leakey and to go on digs. I've been to Ngorongoro Crater. I've been to Olduvai Gorge. And so and I used to have dinner on Sunday with the Peace Corps volunteer who was the archaeologist and the anthropologist who were married to each other. So
tell us about your own journey.
Yes.
Because I think this is a maturity that not everyone gets to, of really digging deep into themselves. Using this analogy of archaeology, like you can dig for a while before you find that nugget that teaches you something. Tell us about your own, mental health journey. I mean, we're all on a journey. We talk about this podcast is Embrace the Journey. What has your journey been like in discovering yourself?
Well, my initial journey was I used to keep a little, I'd call it a Gideon Bible, right in the pocket of my shirt. And I would read it all the time. And, you couldn't watch TV like you can now. But my parents had a TV, but you had to ask to go see it. And there was nothing on TV anyway. There was only 3 channels, and there was nothing really that I wanted to watch. So I'd read a lot. And so just doing that, I'm in the Psalms, I'm in the Gospels, I'm always reading. I still love to read. But what happened is something happened in the family, something traumatic that caused me to, my sister got disciplined. And so I knew I was a good kid and I didn't want to be disciplined. So I really said to myself that I'm going to stop talking, because my sister loved it. I said, I'm not going to talk out of turn because I'm a good kid and I don't need to be disciplined. So as a result of that, I stopped talking, and I had a speech impediment for 14 years. And so as a result of that, I became an avid reader. My parents had 2 sets of encyclopedias, and both of them haven't gone to school for their...
You're giving away your age.
That's okay. It's okay. I wish we had more encyclopedias. And it was so much fun to open up the World Book and just, whatever letter, I'd go to a letter and read, and they had nice pictures, and I loved it. And so that helped me and to continue to just read and understand. And I think vicariously, it gave me a desire to travel the world, and which has allowed me to, go to every state and travel a lot. So that was some initial, but
how did you dig deep and figure out that your speech impediment was from this childhood silencing, likely unconscious for a child, and then you are an adult and you are working on yourself? What was that aha moment that
I knew? Well, I knew when I looked down the hall and I saw my dad discipline my sister, I didn't want to be in that position. So I made an observation. I never want my dad to have to discipline me like that. So I said, okay, I am going to just be quiet. I am going to be quiet, and I'm going to read, and I'm going to observe, and I'm going to be more introverted. And so, I realized that at an early age that
so it was conscious for you.
Huh?
So it was conscious for you. So
Oh yeah, it was very conscious. I didn't need to be on Front Street. I didn't need to have that much attention. My sister had all the attention, and that was fine with me. And I just didn't need. And then I just didn't need. I guess when you're young, you're wanting to have attention, but you don't have everything together. You're not. You.
Yeah. How old were you when you were able to overcome your speech impediment?
Didn't happen till I was like 21.
Mm-hmm.
So in high school, I remember crying in school when I'd have to get up to read a sonnet, in front of the English class, and I was just I was so upset with myself. But then when I went to college, I was a DJ for 4 years, and that helped me because I said I can't mess up. There's 50,000 people listening to me. And so once a week, I have a show for like 5 hours, and they had PSAs I had to read. And I said, so I practiced the PSAs for 15 minutes, and then click, I do my PSA, and I say, the next 15 minutes is brought to you by such and such company. And if you mention our station, they'll give you a 10% discount.
Yeah.
And so I did that for 4 years. And then going to Africa and having to teach school also helped because I had to teach not only in English, but sometime in Swahili.
Mm-hmm.
And so that helped. And I said, okay, I guess I can speak a little bit. And, when you have to teach, you got to be ready. You got to be ready to deliver and disseminate whatever information is part of the course curriculum. So that helped. That's when I knew, okay, I'm ready. But still, I didn't want to do ministry. Nope, I didn't. Nope. So that's why situations had to happen. I got bit by a scorpion, almost died, had malaria twice, almost died, almost, one of the tribesmen thought I was from another tribe. And, tribalism is worse than racism. And so I had to explain to him, no, I'm not from that tribe. I'm from America. And so after I explained my ethnicity and situation, then he put his gun back in his pocket. So
in your retirement,
yes.
Let's end with sharing about your book and how we
Yes.
get a copy of your book.
Yes.
What made you decide to write a book? Let's start there.
Well, this is my second book. My first book was a poetry book called Seasons of the Heart. And my second book is called The Letter I Never Sent. Let's see, I've got so many little things around here, but so this is a copy. I have this QR code.
Okay, there we go.
QR code right there.
Back it up a little bit so we can see it. Back it up towards your face. I think. No, can't see it.
Can you get it? Can you get it?
No, we'll have the information in the description below. We'll have you send that to
I think you can see.
Oh, there you go. The letter never sent.
Right, a memoir of resilience.
Mm-hmm.
So I was the chief. So wanted to work in a hospital, and that started when I was mobilized, and I had to deal with clinical assessment. I said, okay, I've got to get some training if I'm going to give clinical assessment. And so that CPE process, clinical pastoral education process, started in San Diego. Then I took another class in Oakland, Berkeley. Then I took 2 more units in Roseville. Completed my units and got board certified. And so trying to find a job, I had to go to Reno to try to find a job. There was no job in Sacramento. So I went to Reno and became the chief chaplain. So I said for myself, okay, looks like I've kind of reached the pinnacle of where I wanted to be. And so now it's time to write about it.
Mm-hmm.
So because
tell us about the book.
Well, about the book. The book is a collection of many of the vignettes in my life, some important chapters that made a difference in my life. Things there were actually letters that I wrote that I never sent. One letter, one letter is a letter I wrote to my dad, I never saw my dad. I rarely saw my dad. My dad worked with Martin Luther King for 3 years when we lived in Louisiana. I rarely saw him, and so I felt abandoned at times, and you know, so I had to write a letter. So on the day I wrote the letter, I didn't get a chance to give it to him because um, giving some firm words to my sister. And so there are other letters that I have written that I never delivered. And I think we all have letters that we've written and didn't deliver for whatever reason. And so another important letter is after my dad died in 81, my dad had told me that when he had cancer this last year that I was going to be the pastor. And I didn't become the pastor. So for 20 years, I had to wait till the pastor that was assigned died. And then I was given the opportunity to be the pastor. I didn't want to be the pastor because I knew about the members. And so I wrote a letter, said, no, I know, a 7-point letter. And I said, I will support you, but I don't want to be your pastor. But my mom is still living. She's still living. My mom will be 101 this month. Wow. And so she was still living. She's still living. And so, I was conflicted. And that's what often happens in life. Our head says one thing, our heart says one thing, our head says something else. But my heart did not want to pastor the church that I pastored. And so, as a result, I got very sick and had some serious challenges with that particular congregation. And fortunately, I was able to resign and go to San Diego, which was a blessing.
I love the letters never sent. And one of the things that, one of my therapeutic techniques is writing a letter to maybe an offender.
Yes.
A letter to someone who has passed away, writing a letter to God.
Right.
And so I love the essence of you sharing that vulnerable piece. And I think it's a great therapeutic tool to write letters, whether you send them or not. Right?
Yes.
Because it's about getting it out and processing it for yourself.
Yes. So, so the book is a compilation of some very challenging situations with both family and relationships, dealing with love and trust and regret and forgiveness. And it's my personal story of how I endured and how I got up from some very difficult. I was in the pit, and for many people get in the pit and never come out. But I was able, because of I believe the speech impediment helped tremendously because I thought I would never talk. And I think when you go through an early childhood challenge and you overcome that childhood challenge through whatever form of age, that you can use it as a foundation. I said, if I can talk, anything is possible. Yeah. And so through time, I began to I realized if I can talk, then that was my first challenge, is talking. My second challenge was writing. So, but in Africa, I used to write 3 airgrams a day, and I did that for about 4 months. I didn't care if you wrote me back. So that really helped.
It's about challenging yourself wherever you are, challenging yourself.
Yes.
Next step. Yeah.
Yes. So I learned how to talk. I learned how to write, and then I had to say, okay, can I just didn't want to be able to speak. I wanted to speak prophetically. So, if we're going to communicate, we set standards for ourselves.
Yeah.
And now being able to write and share my story, it's a place of vulnerability, and and not that everyone may not like what I've said, but that's another challenge of being able to listen and see where that will lead to some dialogue. Yeah. And hopefully it helps me to be, as transparent, and that transparency helps my authenticity, and it allows dialogue. Now you know more about my story. You may not like it, or it may come at you in another direction, but now we can dialogue, and maybe it'll help you in your
Yeah.
desire to express yourself. So it's
So
been
talking about vulnerability, did you get a chance to watch the grief documentary?
not in
Not yet. Okay.
detail. I'm
Okay.
still working on it. So,
Okay. All right. Well, we'll talk about that next time.
yes,
To get a
yes.
copy of Dr. Thomas's book, there will be a link to the Amazon link there. And thank you so much for coming and talking to us about your story, your archaeological dig into yourself, and how to make those choices to be just a better human being, and that the spiritual walk is part of that. So thank you so much. I appreciate you.
Thank you for the opportunity, and any way I can be of assistance to you and anyone who might view this, just put my email down or my website, and I'm available to listen and let feel.
Okay. We will have all of that stuff down there.